All right, my name is Kyle, and my topic is the United States Electoral College. Before I begin, I'm going to define the Electoral College. According to Oxford Dictionaries, the Electoral College is a body of people representing the states of the United States who formally cast votes for the election of the President and the Vice President. My proposition is that the Electoral College has a negative effect on the presidential election process in the United States of America. Firstly, the universal suffrage concept of one man, one vote doesn't apply in the presidential election of the United States due to the Electoral College. And what suffrage is, universal suffrage is the right to vote by all citizens. The structure of the United States Electoral College doesn't bolster universal suffrage because American citizens do not directly elect the President and the Vice President. According to the Huffington Post and the National Archives, the Electoral College is set up in a way where voting U.S. citizens do not directly elect the President and the Vice President. The American voters elect designated electors in their state who pledge votes for the President and Vice President. Each state is given a set number of electors, which is based on its 2 senators and its number of representatives in the House, which is a number that's determined by every census every 10 years. There's a total of 538 votes available, and 270 of those are needed to win. The Electoral College works as a winner-take-all system in all but 2 states. In most states, the candidate that receives the majority vote receives all that state's electoral votes. In the 2 outlier states, Nebraska and Maine, the votes are distributed proportionally. In these states, the top vote getter wins 2 electoral votes, and the remaining votes are distributed by congressional districts. The state's electoral rules make it possible for both candidates to receive votes from both states. The Electoral College also allows for the possibility of a winner that did not receive at least a majority in the national popular vote. In this current system, the national popular vote actually bears no legal or factual significance. According to factcheck.org, this happened 4 times in the history of the United States, in the elections of 1824, 1876, 1888, and most recently in 2000. In more than half of these instances, voters voted against the candidate that was elected. The most recent example, this was in the election of 2000. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, in the United States presidential election of 2000, the Republican presidential candidate George W. Bush lost the popular vote by a very small margin to Democrat Al Gore. After the election, the votes were so close in Florida that a recount was called, but was delayed and ultimately not performed. This was because the Supreme Court decision that was supported by the Bush campaign said that a fair count could not be performed before a December 18th deadline and reversed the recount order. This decision effectively awarded the presidency to Bush, and despite the fact that Bush lost the popular vote, he defeated Gore on an electoral college technicality. With a winner-take-all system like the Electoral College, it is not possible to tell which candidate is really preferred by the country, especially in a close race like the election of 2000. The Electoral College encourages a disproportionate, secondly, the Electoral College encourages a disproportionate amount of attention and focus by campaigners on a few swing states while disregarding the rest of the country. In states where pre-election polls show that there will be no clear favorite, usually experience a flood of campaign visits, political television advertisements, debates, and grassroots efforts by party organizers. Most states using a winner-take-all agreement where the candidate with the most votes receives the state's electoral votes. With this system, there is a clear incentive for candidates to focus their efforts on a key few undecided states where their efforts will likely determine the outcome of the election. This focus on this select group of voters gives unequal political influence to the rest of the country. According to the Washington Post, some of these states include Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Ohio, Virginia, and Wisconsin. The focus is not on the states with the largest voter populations like California, Texas, and New York. This is usually due to the fact that political parties consider these safe states. For instance, the Democratic Party considers California and New York to be safe states, and the Republican Party considers Texas to be a safe state. Because the outcome of these states are predicted as a win for a certain candidate, campaigners and media spend less time and money in these states. The problem is not that the safe states' needs are ignored or that voters are uninformed due to this practice. The problem is that voters live in a place where one candidate is sure to win. This means that there is nothing to gain by campaigning there, and the voters who vote against the determined outcome of the state are not represented. Thirdly, the United States Electoral College discourages voter turnout and participation, causing an unequal political influence. The Electoral College system discourages voter turnout, especially in states that we mentioned before that were determined safe, a safe win by one candidate. In these states, voters for the minority party candidate are discouraged to go out and vote for their candidate because they think their vote will make a change in their state. This causes a large political inequality because the voters believe that their turnout usually won't matter due to the strength of the one party and the winner-take-all system. This is except in swing states. The voter turnout is largely insignificant because of the ingrained political party definition. Because the outcome is predicted in most states and campaigners don't pay attention to the majority of the states, the voters aren't encouraged to turn out. Most of these states feel their vote is insignificant, and in the current situation, individual voters in most states aren't pressured to turn out or persuade their family and friends to vote. In conclusion, the Electoral College has a negative effect on the United States presidential election process because the universal suffrage concept of one man, one vote doesn't apply. This is because the citizens don't directly elect a president, and it allows for the possibility of a winner that didn't win the national popular vote. It also has a negative effect because of the disproportionate focus on swing states and safe states. The Electoral College also discourages voter turnout, causing an unequal political influence and negative outcome for the United States.
Thank you. All right, the topics identified, you have a clear statement of the proposition. There's not really a preview of what the supporting structure is. You start right in on the argument there. I don't know how many supporting points there are. I think I counted 4 in the process, and I think you need to be a lot more specific about that when you're making your argument. Even if you use some numerical signposts, that would be helpful. The first point I thought was basically, explained. I mean, you spent a lot of time explaining the process, and that's just factual data. It describes what the process is. That's fine. It's pretty basic. The notion that the representation is problematic because the popular vote, there needs to be a little bit more explanation about why the popular vote matters. Since you've explained the process of the Electoral College, one of the things that's missing is the concept behind the Electoral College, and that's the thing that I think most people who defend the Electoral College would point out is a contrast to why we don't just have popular elections, because of the federal system under which we operate. The states' issues matter a little bit differently, and so that's where I think there's going to be more controversy. I think you probably need to confront that issue a little bit more. I think you also miss a trick here because there is an ability to argue that the electoral votes are disproportionately greater weight depending upon the size of the state. I mean, in essence, if you live in Wyoming, your vote counts more towards electoral votes than it does if you live in someplace like California or New York or even Texas, where your vote, it affects a larger number, but it's a huge amount of people that are affecting those votes, whereas in a place that's only got the 3 votes, that sort of thing, those folks, they have a lot, their influence is greater and more significant. I think that might have been a better way to make that particular argument. The argument that there's a problem because the candidates campaign in the swing states, I'm not sure that you explain what's negative about that. In essence, you say that people aren't being represented, but I'm not sure why you feel they're not represented if they're not campaigned at. They still vote, and if they vote, why is it irrelevant? I think the argument that you make on the 4th point, where people are disenfranchised, seems to suggest a stronger reason why they are, left out of the process rather than, they didn't get campaigned to. The assertion on the last point that there is an effect on voter turnout is just that. It's an assertion. I didn't hear any data on that. I heard a theory on it, and you need some information to support it as well. Okay, I'm going to stop there.